Today, I am alone. So both I and you are going to have things more difficult, so let's be mutually polite. For the first part of our agenda, which was linked to preparing the Union of Sovereign States, so as to hand it over for approval to the Supreme Soviets of the Republics and to the Supreme Soviet of the Soviet Union, and has now completed. We've finished that stage. We had wanted to ratify each sheet individually and to achieve a collective decision on behalf of the State Council and present it to the Supreme Soviets, as I said, of the republics and of the Soviet Union, and then publish it. The results of this very lengthy work and all its details, which arose in the course of the work, and the draft, which we already discussed at the press conference, and we had the opinions of the leaders of the sovereign states, of our sovereign states, and we have decided to hand this over to the Supreme Soviets, and this is the draft for the Union Treaty of Sovereign States. We ask the Supreme Soviets to examine this draft with a view to signing it this year and publishing it in the press. I have to say that we've come full circle, if I'm to be frank. Such, I assume, is the nature of the material we are working with. And although the debates were sharp in tone and serious in nature, we all understood that the process simply cannot go on the way it has been. This country and society are in such a situation that we have to move forward. Otherwise we won't have any reform if we don't untie this chief knot, this question of state. Therefore, in addition to that which was agreed upon at the last meeting, we haven't had any essential changes. This has been more editorial in nature. The only thing, if I look back just now, is that we have excluded the possibility from the treaty the necessity for having a president of the Supreme Soviet. There is still a vice president. There is a bicameral body. There is a presidium selected by the citizenry in accordance with law. There will be a state council, which has been not only reestablished, but the comrades even spoke in favor of having this body become more effective in playing that role which it previously played. We want to have less complicated phrases in the law. The State Council should be a coordinating body on a state level, led by the President of the nation, so that his decisions might be mandatory in nature, and thus be able to act effectively. So his functions have been described quite precisely in the law on governmental structures during the transitional period. This is an essential feature. One more thing which is important: there was support for the prosecutor's office being not an independent institution, and that it might as in other countries, be subordinated to the Supreme Soviet of the Soviet Union and not be an independent body. There's also a discussion on questions of competence of future governmental bodies. We had no disagreements. We clarified questions of foreign policy. At the last meeting of the State Council, we produced a memorandum saying that we would have coordination of foreign policy. We had to appoint a new minister. That would be Comrade Shevardnadze. So what do you coordinate? That means you have to have a policy to coordinate. So we've found the proper formulations for coordinating foreign policies and establishing the principles upon which that coordination might be based. And that took a long time. So those are perhaps the more essential points that we discussed. Coming back to the discussion of the whether we're going to have a confederation or a separate state. That was a very important question. And so we maintained the formulation which we had agreed upon previously at the State Council, that the union of sovereign states would be a confederated democratic state. And this position was maintained throughout the draft. Thus, it is very difficult to work at such a moment of responsibility. And we have completed the work of the State Council, and I think that within 2 days, no longer, we will make certain corrections here. I am Teresha from Interfox. Just a few days ago, people were talking about ratifying the agreement. The fact that this has not been signed, not been ratified, and this has been process is being dragged out, does not reflect the caution of the leaders of the republics, and perhaps that is a negative phenomenon. I think that the leaders of the republics, to a degree, and that's probably to their advantage, they've been maneuvering. And they want to have this process to be completed in the Supreme Soviets of the various republics, and they don't want to encroach upon the rights of their own Supreme Soviets. But that's what the ratification is all about. We work out a draft which is then sent out for examination. I am Tikhomenko from the Independent newspaper. We might have a real war today or tomorrow between Azerbaijan and Armenia. How can we lessen this danger? We are constantly working on that problem. And the tragedy which has occurred has induced us to offer our good services. I had some contacts here. And I wanted to eliminate the chief problem, the clashes between these armed bodies and bands. And we might establish a political process. People are very unhappy. Their nerves have been stretched. So I have proposed that we establish a 5-kilometer zone on either side, which would be neutral, and thus deprive these armed bands of the chance to come into armed conflict with each other, and thus subject the lives of the citizenry to danger. These bands are not subordinating themselves to anyone. The official authorities cannot cope with them. We just now had a conversation during the break, and we're going to come back to that discussion. We have a very explosive situation. We are truly on the edge of a real war, and I think the State Council has to adopt a position because people realize that we have to do something. If we don't, I am convinced that this might work out very badly, and we will continue this question. I am Bushkevich from Pravda. Mikhail Sergeyevich, what do you think? Can the Union Treaty be signed in early December? I think in early December, no. But by the middle or perhaps the 20th of December,